Hello, everyone. How are you doing this evening? It's Amy from Seriously Sweet on Davis Street. How are you guys tonight? Hello there. How are you? I'm just going to pop this up real quick for anybody who catches the replay later. We have a new feature where you can get text alerts before we go live. We use this on Tuesdays for cookie therapy when I'm on live with Marlon, and then I'll be using it for any of the live streams I do during the evening. So if you would like to get involved in that, you can text that number there. It's 540-870-0726. You can text the word live stream, and that will automatically put you in the live stream listings. You can text sign me up. You can text hello, whatever you want. We'll get you in those group listings. When you sign up, they're going to send you something back that says that the text rates are based on your carrier. So if you have unlimited texting, you're good to go. If you pay per text, then you'll have that. But I promise to keep it to a minimum, maybe 3 or 4 a week. I'm going to text you before Tuesday, and I'll be texting you guys before Marlon goes live on Friday so that you won't miss Marlon, Han, and Amber. So we have that available for you now too. I'm going to go ahead and take that off. How are you guys doing? So today on Cookie Therapy, Marlon did some awesome character cookies and talked you through how to set that up. So you can go back and watch that on either of our YouTube channels or our business Facebook pages if you want to see that. And she walked you through that, and she's got her templates available in her coffee shop for that. And then this is the project that I started today. We'll be doing a bee theme again tonight, but also we started this today, and I'm going to walk back through how to do the royal icing transfer templates, how to create strong transfers so that we'll have those ready in case I get to do something for you tomorrow. But again, this is Amy from Seriously Sweet on Davis Street, and we're going to have a live stream. You can just come on and off as you choose. Hang out with me for a while if you want to, but we're going to work on some bee cookies tonight, just some fun things. So this, in the picture there, you see the 3 royal icing transfer templates. Those are available for sale in my coffee shop, which is, let's put that up too so it's in the video for just a minute before we get started. So the link to just my coffee shop is posted there on the, oops, hold on one second. A supply list. This week, it let's see. Am I back? Did it keep the same stream? Hey, Nadine, how are you? Hey, Julie. Hi, Robin. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Tracy. Nadine, I think I'm okay now. So down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the link for Seriously Sweet on Davis Street. And I'm going to pop back up to the top really quick and put in just a link for the coffee shop. Hold on just a second. Let's put that ticker. That's all the places you can follow us if you want to catch different live streams and photographs, announcements, that think we might be frozen again. I hope not, but it looks like we might be frozen again. So let's see what's going on. I love technology, don't you? But what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Isn't that the general saying? All right, let's see if this shows up or not. All right, I think we're good. Okay, so it's the coffee shop link is also at the bottom of that little ticker at the bottom of the screen, but I thought I'd pop back on tonight. I had a couple of questions this afternoon from people about how to best make these royal icing transfers. Apparently, they have a lot of trouble with wings when they do winged animals with things breaking. So I'm going to run back through these again tonight. And if you'd like to get these templates, they're available for sale in my coffee shop. There's 3 in there, along with the full supply list that we did today during cookie therapy for the bees. So there's a full supply list there with clickable links. Everything I used today for cookie therapy is on there. You can pop on there, get that supply list, and then these templates are all in there. And I was going to clean this up before I came on camera, but then I decided it might be helpful for you to see that with just a little bit of water and a paper towel, you can clean off these cello bags and reuse them so that you're not having to throw them out each time. So I just popped the transfers off from earlier. They were dry, popped right off. Let's see. Okay, let's see if this works. Yeah, that's where you need to go if you want to buy these transfer templates. They're in a 6x6 format. The link is also in the supply list if you want to buy these 6.5 inch by 6.5 inch cello bags. It's how I like to do my transfers so that I can pipe directly on this food safe smooth surface. And then I can keep reusing my template. I only have to make 1 of each template. So these, I just cleaned these off from using them earlier today. You saw how easy that was. Quick wipe down with a little bit of water on a paper towel, and we're good to go. So we did a really fun bee theme today. Let me pop over here to comments and see who's here before we get started, okay? Let's see. So I see Nadine. Hi, Nadine. How are you? Hi, Julie. Hi, Robin. I'm glad you can at least listen. When you get home, maybe you'll want to rewatch it. Hello there, Miss Jennifer. Thank you for getting your vaccine shot today. Hi, Tracy. Oh, thank you. The bees are so much fun. I love bee-themed cookies. So this is not a tragedy for me to come back on with you again tonight. It'll be a lot of fun. Nadine, I think we took care of the frozen screen. I think we're back. I think maybe I shouldn't be typing things in while we're live. Maybe that's what bogged us down. I don't know, but it looks good now. Let's see, Jennifer. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Sally, drop in where you guys are from. Miss Sally is faithful every Tuesday to follow us. She's from Kansas. Nadine is from Alaska. Come on, Nadine, say something. She's not from Alaska. She's from Canada. It's just that I always say she's from Alaska, and she always corrects me. I was wondering if she'd be fast enough. Hey, Melinda. Oh, I should mention that too. Melinda, in the comments, feel free to drop the link to the Frosting Creators of San Antonio to your group. She has a wonderful group out, and there was tons of, not tons, I would say 11, 12 tutorials on Sunday, about an hour long each. All kinds of fabulous artistry for cakes and cookies. It was really a great day. I really want to tell you thank you for inviting me to participate in that. And thank you for everyone that came over to watch. But drop a link in there because the replays are available in the group and the group is free. So jump in there. Hey, Jeremy, half watching. Okay, the feed is sketchy. I think it's fixed now. It looks like it's got full signal on my end. One of the reasons I wanted to jump on tonight and do this is to also see what the internet was like, the FiOS was like at nighttime, and see if I was going to have a lot of trouble. But I think it was operator error at the beginning. Jennifer, thank you for popping that in there. If any of our normal Tuesday people are on, please pop in links if you happen to think of it. Maybe you can help people. We might have different people on tonight because it's nighttime and some people will be home. Hey, Missy, how are you doing? Hi, Debbie. So if I say something, mention something, and I'm decorating or making a transfer, just drop a link in for them, okay? Hi, Chris. How are you and Tammy tonight? It's good to see you popped on here. Hello, Miss Darla. Hi, Laura. Lori's here tonight. Hi, Lori. Becky's here. Yep. So we got text. So weird. Let's see. That is showing that we're back and no problem, and it shows full strength, but I don't see how that could be. All right, well, let's jump in and get started. It looks like it's fully revived again. I don't know. All right, so I think we're okay. So let's do a few of these. So I wanted to say hi. Thank you guys so much. Melinda, thank you for this weekend. It was really fun. So in that coffee download, there are 3 royal icing transfer templates. There's a large bee, a small bee, and a beehive. Isn't this beehive so cute? We're going to start with this one first. Off to the side, I'm just going to have a paper towel. Nothing fancy, just any old paper towel. I'm going to dampen it with some water. This is what I use to clean the tips of my bags as I move from one item to the next. I'm going to just purge the tip on this. I'm using toothpaste consistency icing, which is really like 25 to 30-second icing. When what all that means is a second count tells you, hey, Heather, the second count. So Nadine, thank you. She's in Victoria, British Columbia. She's actually on Vancouver Island, which is a fabulous place, I'm told. I hear it's quite beautiful. So when everything's over, Nadine, I'm definitely going to want to come for a visit. Okay. And let me get let me see if I can get where there's not as much glare. Hold on one second, you guys. I want to change one more light. I changed the lighting system today, so we would have a little bit brighter area on our cookies. But I want to tip this up just a little and see if I can cut some of the glare since we're using these cello bags tonight. I think that's a little bit better, huh? Okay. So I'm using mainly toothpaste consistency icing tonight. When you're building a royal icing transfer, one of the things that you need to make sure that you do is that you create strong transfers. There's no point in putting in all the work to make these beautiful, cute little transfers. So things like this, let me show you what we did earlier today. These are a couple of the beehives, and this is one of the large bees. So we made these beautiful transfers, but wouldn't it be so disappointing if you sat and spent 2 or 3 hours, made 100 of these, and then when you went to take them off the cello bag to actually use them on your cookies, if they all broke? So let's talk about a couple of things to do with that will help you get good transfers. So you want to use a nice thick consistency icing. Basically, you want the icing to stay exactly like it is when it comes out of the bag. And if you do need to manipulate it, you really only want it to settle down or come into a different shape by using a boo-boo stick or a scribe to help the icing settle a little bit. It should be so thick that if you don't touch it, it stays just like it looks when it comes out of the bag, which for a project like bees and bee hives is fantastic because you want them to look like they have a little texture. It makes them look a little more natural, right? The other thing that's really important is that you structurally build a strong transfer so that when they come off of the cello bags to be used to go on your cookie, you want them to be strong. So you don't want these wings to be super weak and break off. Otherwise, what was the point of making the transfer? The reason to make the transfers is so you can do a fancier looking cookie without taking as much time the actual day or the days that you're making the cookie. These are things that can be made well ahead of time, stored in airtight containers. I've had some for as much as a year. They taste exactly like the ones that I used the first week. So that's really up to you. They don't go bad once they've dried out. They're just like a little hard candy. So this particular one, we're using the thick icing that I told you about. We definitely didn't do anything to try to help it settle down because we wanted it to have that texture. You know, bumblebees are fuzzy, furry kind of looking little creatures. Wings often have a lot of dimension to them. So anyone looking at this that doesn't know how to construct a transfer might be looking at this and see this as separate, 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 separate. But really, this is one large piece. It's joined together to create one item. And I'm going to flip it over so you can see on the back. So we didn't do the head and the body and then go back and pipe in wings. Okay, we start from the background and work our way forward. So on a transfer like this, you can see all four of the wings are actually touching each other. So we piped those first. Then we took the body of the bee and put the body over the connection point of the four wings, bringing it down and shaping the body properly. Then we went back and added the head. So the head is also joined to the body and the wings. And because we're using such a thick icing, and the icing isn't going to move unless you assist it in healing, what you can do is do this whole transfer all at one time so that everything goes together. So when I say all at one time, what I actually mean is one sheet at a time, because I actually do pieces and then go back and add other layers. So I'm going to show you how to do that too. But for instance, that bee, he's super solid. The wings are nice and thick because it's a very dry icing when you're piping it. There's not a lot of extra water content in it. It's going to stay where I put it down when I put it down on the little sheet above the template. But the other thing that's nice is there's not a lot of water to evaporate. So it's pretty much taking up the same volume. There's not going to be a lot of air pockets, I guess is what I'm trying to explain to you. So that makes it a little stronger as well. So you can break it. It's not going to hurt someone's teeth if they bite into this on a cookie. It's just you need it to be strong enough to hold up for when you take it off where you've piped it to then take it to your cookie. The other thing that's really great about using these cello bags, and they are food safe, so it's great to use these, they don't wrinkle like parchment paper or wax paper. When the water in the icing hits parchment or wax paper, it can crinkle and you can get a lot of grooves. These are super smooth because they were piped on cello bags. What's important about that is that there's not going to be a lot of openings or gaps once you reintroduce wet icing to this to then basically glue it to your cookie, right? You'll be using royal icing to take to the back of the royal icing transfer, which is totally dry, and then adding it to a cookie or dropping it on top of wet icing on a cookie, depending what design you're doing. But what's nice is it needs to be flat so that there's not going to be any gaps underneath. It's going to adhere to your cookie really nicely. And you want that in case you're bagging your cookies. You don't want a lot of areas that are sticking up that could break off or make little bits and pieces in the bottom of your cookie bag because it's just not very attractive. So let's get started on our bee hives, okay? And if you guys would, everybody that's on live with me over there, tell me something fun that you did this weekend. Just drop in a single comment over there so we can make sure everybody's still with us. Please keep it PG-13 and no weird jokes because the kids are home from school now. So let's start here. We're going to start by piping the hole, the opening that would go into the beehive. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to pipe that just a little bit larger than the circle that's actually on our sheet, so that we can take the yellow icing when we come back to make the rings of the beehive, we can put those up over the dot. And that's how we're going to fully incorporate that dot as well. Now, you could do this like we're going to do on a cookie in a few minutes and kind of flatten it out and make very low profile, use very low profile in the black dots. You certainly could do that. But on the transfers, I think it's better to have a little bit taller and thicker of an item so that they can join together very well and makes a strong, durable transfer that'll pop off without breakage. Do you see how I'm just using the tip of my bag and doing a little jiggle? You know, it's such a thick icing that when you pull your bag out, even though you're not applying pressure or piping, you tend to get a little pointy tip. And so we want to make sure we take care of that so that when we're bagging our cookies, that little bit of icing doesn't break off and go to the bottom of the bag, okay? We definitely don't want to have that look like it's been shipped around the country and all of that. You know how sometimes things like that happen. So you can see all of these, the tips are nicely settled in there. The other thing that's great about using as thick of icing as you can handle and that will work with the design you're working on is you don't often have to worry about cratering. Cratering will not be a big thing that you've got to focus on and work these in and out of a dehydrator or put them under a fan, because oh, Amy, yeah, Amy's answering the question for what she did this weekend for the Frosting Creators of San Antonio virtual day of sharing. It was really awesome. And Missy, graduation, that's fun. Graduation celebrations. And Christy, dinosaur paddle boarding. Okay, now I got to know what that is. That sounds really fun. So the other thing that's good about doing this, though, because there's not going to be a lot of water, you're not going to have to worry about cratering. I explained to the group earlier today as well that it's good when the icing is this thick and you don't have to worry about it running back together when it's this thick, to go ahead and do your colors together as quick as you can on something like this, so that your black and your yellow don't end up color leaching back and forth. So what we're going to do, guys, we're going to start right here on this edge, and it's a little difficult to pipe this way. I normally pipe straight up and down like this and then move right to left like this, but I'm going to do it at a bit of an angle. Let's see, Becky, you probably don't need where you're from up there the whole time, right? So let me see if I can find it and unclick it. There we go. All right, now let's go up here and take the banner and the ticker off. I feel like they've been on there long enough. You guys can help anybody out if they need to know where to go to buy the templates tonight. I'd appreciate that very much. And I'm going to roll this down to the bottom. I'm going to try to watch for your questions, but if I miss it, then just put it back in there. Oh, so this is cool. So they wore dinosaur costumes for National Dinosaur Day and went paddle boarding. Oh my gosh, I bet that was so fun. How fun would that be? Okay, so we're going to go back and I'm going to try to do it from the side. But you know, in the beehives, they have a lot of natural texture. What's really nice about this super thick icing, can you see that little bouncing motion I'm doing? That's basically creating the ripples. So it looks like I have spent hours hand texturing this, but really it's just being done with the tip of my bag. Now, can you see that it was very wide and then it got smaller and it got very wide? That's all done by controlling the pressure of your hand. So I'm allowing the icing to come out and touch down, and watch this carefully. I'm going to stay in that same spot with the up and down motion until it fills the width of my line, so that I'm used to what the pressure is. And I'm going to do that until I get over to the black circle, which is the opening to our beehive. Then I'm going to relax on the pressure a little, still continuing with the bouncy motion. And then when I get to the other side, more pressure, more icing in the same location and bouncing. And that is how I join that little opening. I join that little opening into that piece of the transfer. So once this entire transfer is finished, it's going to be nice and solid. So on these, I'm just going to come in right here. And I'm going to do every other section on the ones that I'm going to do. Thought this might be fun. These are really great cookies for the summertime, for baby gender reveals, for weddings, for barbecues. They're a lot of fun. So I thought this might be good for you guys to have these templates. You could do these now and put them up and then just pull them out whenever you need them. And also, you guys, this is a very forgiving thing if you're new to doing royal icing transfers. It's very forgiving because texture's good. So it's something you want to create. Now, I will also say to you, if you're doing these and your icing's too smooth, like it's closer to flood consistency than toothpaste, just stop, add a little bit of powdered sugar in, usually a teaspoon to tablespoon at a time, work it in, get it to the right consistency, test one. There's no point in fighting with icing that's not the right consistency for the particular type of project you're working on, okay? So definitely just fix that icing up before you go on. And you see, I'm basically using my template really just as a guideline. These are not perfectly within those lines. And I think sometimes when people download Royal Icing transfer templates, they think, oh my God, how do I make, how do I do that? So like, here's the bee, and we'll come over and do the bee in a minute, but this might be a little intimidating to a new cookier who does not understand how to build the template itself, that not all of this is in icing, that this is just show you what your final item is going to look like. So we're going to talk through that too, because this one actually only uses white and yellow icing. So this one actually goes much faster than you would think, but we'll go through that in just a minute. Let's just go ahead and do 2 more of these in case you need to watch this on a larger screen. You'll be able to really see that motion. I love this. I used to have these fabulous bee skeps that were woven out of a basket material, and I was always infatuated with how much detail it was the way the basket maker made the bee skeps, which are also really fun if you can get a hold of any of those. The bottoms are open on those. They look like beehives, but the bottoms are open, so they're great covering for food that's outside during 4th of July parties and things like that. So if you want to make have a bee themed party, then it's a great accessory to have too. So can you see what I'm doing here? How we're just creating that so that you don't have to go back and hand sculpt that. And again, the pressure piping at the one that's going to come up and over, and then lessen the pressure around the top, because we kind of want to keep that like a circular opening going into our beehive. So you're getting the drift on that. I think I'm in frame on camera, and I've moved it to a couple of locations just in case anybody's having trouble with glare or anything. Now look, that's maybe been what, two or 3 minutes we've been working on that. So what's so nice is this icing is so thick. Because I have trouble with my hand often right here. This is my thick icing. Instead of one big bag of thick icing that I have to hold and try to work, I do have 3 little bags of this thick icing. I split it up into separate bags. The tipless piping bags are so inexpensive. It's not worth the cost of a doctor trip or a brace for your hand or ruining your hand for future use, right? So we can immediately go back and do these other sections because this is such a thick icing. We don't have to worry about the icings marrying together. You see what I'm doing? So I'm literally just in between where we ran the other rungs of the beehive. And I'm going to turn this sideways so you can see it. This is going to be nice and puffy. So it's got a lot of definition. It's not going to move when I turn it sideways for you to take a look at it. But I want you to see, and then just using the tip of my bag so that I won't end up with all those little brittle broken pieces in my cookie, on my cookie or in my cookie bag. I'm just using the tip of the bag. Now let me lift this for you. Let me get that up there and can you see all of that? So let me turn it sideways and let you see how raised that is. So it's not a little bit of icing, it's quite a bit. So you're going to get nice dimension when you add this piece to your cookie. All right, so let's do one more of these. Let me get in frame here. There we go. Let's do one more of these. And we're going to fill in here. Now, because this one is such an easy transfer as far as how you put it together and creating it, when you're in between the dried layers, you're just really giving a good squeeze. So if you want to get a little more height, that's the areas where you would get it because it's going to be contained by the 2 outer walls. So we'll finish these 2 off really quick. Let's do these. I'm going to do these fast like I would be doing them if I was making it for the store. I'm doing it slow for you guys so that you can see how to actually do it. But now let me show you how fast you can actually do it. So, we're just coming right through here. These don't take hardly any time at all to create. Nice and puffy, joining all my pieces. Not going to have to worry about any color bleed with these because they're all done within the same hour. So they're not completely dry. So that's nice. They won't be trying to send color back and forth. So I love that. I love how these look. Let's see, there we go. Can you see the focus on that? Isn't that nice? And then you can see they're not moving at all when I turn them. They're not going anywhere. That's the consistency of icing you're looking for. So I would do a whole sheet of these, which would give me 16. Let's say I'm doing 48 of these. The next thing that I would do based on how I do my royal icing templates when I make them, it pulls right out of the bag. And what I have in here is a piece of 110 cardstock or a piece of cake board cut 6 inches by 6 inches to continue to support these. So if I wanted to pop them in the dehydrator, they could go in the dehydrator right now. But again, this icing is so thick, they really don't need to go in the dehydrator because we don't really have to worry about cratering because we don't have to worry about a lot of water evaporating from that icing. So what I've done there is I pulled that out, and what that allows me to do is only have to create one template. I don't have to make a whole bunch of these and have something on top of them and, you know, have 4 or 5 of them to go. If I need to make 100 of these, I can just take this and pop it into the next bag and I can keep going. And I like that. That's why I invest in the extra time to actually make my royal icing transfer templates. And I have a nice filing system for them, just like I do for my stencils. So that's one of the reasons that I do that. Okay, now just using my damp paper towel off to the side, I'm going to purge the tip of the white toothpaste consistency icing. Again, it's a smaller bag. It's not as small as the yellow, but I'm doing the wings with it, so not a big deal. Let's talk about how to best start this. If you're a person that tends to put your hand, elbow, forearm in your icing all the time, you're going to want to think through what rotation you're going to work on. Hey, Sherry, how are you doing tonight? That's my sister, you guys. You're going to want to think about the order that you do this in so that your hand is not working. For instance, I'm right-handed, so I'll start upper left and I'll go right. I'll drop down a line and go left to right, left to right. But if I were left-handed, I would have this angled this way, and I would most likely be working exactly opposite, right? I'd go from right to left, and I'd work this way. So what we'll be doing is the 2 wings on this side when we start, and then we'll rotate the entire template and do the other wings, okay? So we need to be really careful on this because we don't want to make these and then break the wings. You can fix it on the cookie, but it's a lot better to just make a nice solid transfer from the get-go. Then there's no repair work to do, okay? So let's get started. I'm turning it at an angle that works for a right-handed person. If you have a different way you like to do these, please feel free to do that. You're not locked into the way I'm doing it, just trying to give you some helpful tips and some cute templates in case you want to use those. I'm going to start with the larger wing, start up in the corner, and I'm pressure piping into that area. I want those cute ripples, and I'm using the pressure piping to control the wing, and I'm bringing that wing all the way to the center of the body of the bee because we're going to be stacking this. Hey, how are you doing? I'm going to be stacking each of the layers because I want it to become one solid piece. I don't want it to be separate little pieces that could break off, and I just want a nice secure transfer. So I did my upper wing. Now let's start. And again, I'm going from the side, so it's a little trickier, and this is very thick icing, so I need the icing to attach before I start the pressure piping. Otherwise, you're going to wind up with squiggly lines, okay? So purging the tip on a paper towel because I stopped to talk. It's that thick that it could crust in just 30 seconds. So let's start here. Let it touch down, then pressure, and the pushing motion is going to fill that wing. I'm going to come up into the large wing and over it. So that's joined now. That's one full piece. So let's just watch a few of those. Bees are tricky for people because of the wings, but don't be afraid to try it. And can you see what I mean about not doing each of your pieces within the lines? Like I'm not keeping my wing just in this part of the line and within this part of the line. I'm actually going into the next section so that these things are all joined up together. So we're going to do 4 of these, and then I'm going to flip it. So you see we're starting in the wing, pressure piping, nice and full. It's a toothpaste consistency icing. I'm crossing into the body. I'm going to do the lower wing, pressure piping to get it to the size I want. And again, it's a little bit bigger than what the lines are on the template. So I'm using that as a guideline, but not getting crazy if it comes a little bit out of the line. We're starting here. Oh, you guys, also, when you're on our live streams, if you feel like you have friends that might enjoy what you're watching, it would help our live streams and the algorithm. I guess it's the algorithm with how often people see it and how far up in the playlist that we are for people. If you would make sure that you like, yeah, you definitely, I'm going to say that you can rewatch this. You don't have to watch it now. I know it's dinner time, so definitely you can rewatch this later. But it helps us a lot if you share the live stream while we're live, and if you make sure you have liked the Facebook page or like the stream. If you like the stream itself on Facebook, so that you don't have to leave the video to go back and like that actual thing. If you haven't liked our page before, then that'll allow us to invite you so that you'll get notified for future live streams. And then we also have the texting. So you can sign up for the texting. I put that up. That's at the beginning of the video if you're joining us late. All right. And I'm just going to pipe a few of these and talk to you about my filing system for my transfers. So let's start with how I started my filing system to begin with. Let's give this a quick rotation, and then we're going to work left to right again so that I don't put my hand into anything. And I'm going to show you one, and then we'll talk about the filing system. So I'm pressure piping, bringing it all the way into where it joins up with the other two wings that we already did. Same thing, going to the smaller wing, making sure it joins the large wing, and then crossing over. So while I'm doing these, I'll tell you about that. I had to find a way to keep track of my stencils. And what I found was the first way I filed them did not work at all for me. I started out filing them alphabetically by literally what they were. So let's say, at Christmas time, the buffalo plaid is super popular. So I had it filed under buffalo plaid. What I found as I got more stencils into my cookie arsenal was that I needed to just have all the plaids together. So then I went back and I reorganized my sections. Each of my stencils is in their own clear plastic holder to protect them, because as you're pulling them in and out of whatever you're keeping them in, they can get damaged, and you don't want that because it doesn't work well with airbrushing. Or if you're trying to do stencil scraping, if they're messed up, you can't use them. So it's a lot of money and you can't do anything with it, right? So then what was the good in that? I did look into doing the binder systems, but I didn't really want to do the binder system. I didn't want to do that because then every time I added a new stencil, I had to redo those pages, and I that didn't work for me just because I have so many. So, what I ended up doing was reorganizing them really by category. So I have a Christmas major category, and then within the Christmas category, there's other things in there. Like all my gingerbread is together. All of my holiday wreaths are together. My stripes are all together. So then I have thin stripes, wide stripes, cross stripes, things like that. And then if I have Father's Day stencils, I have those under the category of Father's Day, but I have them separated out. Like if it's just Father's Day wording, or if it's like a Father's Day graphic versus wording, they're separated that way. So it gets me to the right spot, because what I found was happening was I could not find the stencil I was looking for. And then I'd be like, where would I file that? And then I'd think, okay, so that makes sense. That's how my brain is working. So again, this has to work for you. I would think, oh, well, the bees, that's, I started out with insects, right? So I have a major category of insects, but then they were just all in there, whatever I had, bees, birds, butterflies, they were all together under something. So then I went back and separated out all my bee stencils, because I realized I was making a lot of bee cookies. So I have honeycomb stencils. I have the actual little bees. I have little crowns to go on the bees for queen bees. So all of that had to come to one area. It didn't make sense to have the little bees separate from where I had the bee hives and things like that. So what I realized was when I had them filed in a way that wasn't working for me, I'd go there thinking that's where they'd be. They weren't there. And then I would just make notes about what my first thought was when I thought I needed the stencil. Where should I have gone to grab that stencil? And that's how I did it. And then with my royal icing transfer templates, I just used that same system of filing and carried it over because I didn't want to make it confusing for myself. You know, cookies have to be done when there's not a lot of other activity going on because you're working with royal icing. So you can't necessarily, if I was in the store by myself, I can't be making cupcakes in the back, plus answering the front door, plus having the ovens going, plus working on cookies, right? When you sit down to do cookies, you're ready to do cookies. So it just had to come up with something for me that would work, that I could keep all of that super organized. So now we have 4 fully done sets of wings. Because the icing is thick, there's not a lot of water. We don't have to worry about it marrying together, right? That's why we keep sections separate when we're allowing things to dry. And I'm going to demo that for you in a minute on a cookie. I see someone is asking about where I found those sheets. I think originally I got my sheets. Someone sent me a pack maybe from Cookie Countess. I think they had a notebook and they had the sheets. They had a couple extra, sent them to me to see if I liked them or not. I think they also have them on Amazon. And then another friend of mine uses those little photo books, the little square photo books, and her stencils fit perfectly in there. She has to trim stencils that were not specifically made for cookie stencils. She has to trim the outer edge sometimes, but those also work well. I like my system because there's not a whole, it's all in one little filing box that's like 6.5 by 6.5 by 8 inches tall. So they're all in there. It's got a little handle on it, I think, and I just take it off. And then when what I have right now is a little 6-inch wide by 12-inch long wooden crate. All right, so can you see how I'm doing this body? I'm just working this back and forth. And again, I'm using the fact that this is a thick icing and that it's automatically going to pull a tail. I'm using that to my advantage so that I end up with a point without having to get in there and push that icing around with my scribe tool, okay? Oh, and by the way, if you were on the frosting, no. If you were on last Tuesday when I was on live with Marlon and I did some cookies, I was using a cool little needle with a pink handle that I had picked up at Hobby Lobby. And we were trying to figure out what it was called. I knew it wasn't a scribe, but it's a tool that I like to use when I've got a lot of little detail work to do because it's a needle point on it. This is actually a fondant needle. This is when you're doing cakes, which is why I did originally buy it, but it moved from my fondant tool collection over to my cookie area. So it's to pop air bubbles when you're doing fondant on cakes, but it's fantastic if you want to spend the time in these little tiny areas, or if you want to make little delicate lines when you're making hearts on cookies, doing the wet on wet technique works fabulous for that. So I'm up on top of the 4 wings. And I'm just looking at this for my guideline and then looking where it's open at the bottom to create the body, right? And I'm going to tip this and show it to you. Let me make sure I'm up on camera there so you can see how puffy this is. I mean, it really is a nice 3-dimensional bee by the time you get done. And I'm pulling out at the end there so that I end up with that tip. Now, the only caution to the tips on the bee tails, because they are so sweet, is that you do really want to take a second and go back and knock off any little teeny tiny parts that are too sharp. Otherwise, that is going to bust off when you bag it and wind up in the bottom of your cookie bag, and it'll just look messy. All right, so there's our bodies. It's a very thick royal icing, so we're going to move right on and put the heads. Now, what we're going to do with the head, because we're not going to outline and flood, we're going to just start, and with the pressure piping, we're going to let gravity just take over. We're starting to pipe. It's automatically making a circle. I'm getting a nice height by jiggling my bag up and down. I'm alleviating the point on the head, but the head is joined to the body and the wings. Can you see that? So I'm starting almost, let me put a dot there. Can you see how close? Let me move that where it's not glaring. See that little dot right there? So I'm starting my circle in the center of what would actually be the head, even though the body and the wings are crossing over that area. And by pressure piping like that, it's pushing the icing underneath the body up to the two wings, but it's still giving me a beautiful 3D circular head here. And then as I get ready to pull the bag out from the icing, just that little bit of jiggle is causing that area to go smooth. So I'm going to have a nice circular bee head on there. If I don't like something or I don't feel like it has enough in there, as long as I work quickly, I can go do a little cookie Botox, and I can put the bag into the icing and shoot just a little bit more icing. And then I'll use my scribe tool. I mean, if I really just don't want to waste that template because I had done other pieces first, I'll just use that, and the moisture from what I just added will cause it to heal together, and I'll get a nice cute little bumblebee head on this. Okay, now don't spend a lot of time correcting a transfer. If it's just really not how you want it to look, just scrape it off and start over. The only reason I'm not scraping these is because we did the wings first, so we'd have to go back and redo the wings. So if it's salvageable, I'm going to try to salvage it. But this is just such a cute little template to work with. And again, starting to pressure pipe right where the center of the circle for the head would actually be. A little bit of jiggling with the bag causes all that to marry together. Now I'm going to turn it and I'm going to check out my bees. This is the only bee body I feel like I don't quite have enough icing. So what I'm going to do is just come back and forth right here so that it looks like texture. I'm just going to set some additional icing right on top of what's already down there, being careful not to hit the transfer that's below it. So see, look how easy it is on these to just add a little bit more and keep going. So let me show you these up close. This is the big bee body. And let me turn it so you can see the depth that you can get on the bodies. Isn't that nice? That is at least a 1/4 inch. So when you go to add this to your cute hexagon cookies or your beehive cookies, so sweet. So this we would let dry, and I would let these dry overnight, just completely dry so that all the moisture is gone and you don't have to worry about any pressure, putting any pressure on them. And then I have these great markers. I grabbed these off Amazon. The clickable link to purchase these is in the supply list. It's a 2-tip pen. We've got a nice fluffy brush end on this end. And on this end, we've got a wider, broad, a little bit wider fine point. If you're very gentle, you can use this as a nice fine tip marker. So we'll be using this end. And what I did was after these were fully dry, I popped it off the transfer sheet. And then using this as my guide, I just went back and added a line here for the black and a line here, and then a little bit down here at the tip to give him a little tip at the end. Now, the reason I don't like to pipe the black and the yellow separate is because we're about to switch over and do these little tiny bees, which are just a little tiny bit above a 1/4 inch. So you can imagine how small these are, right? So I didn't want my bees to look different from each other. So I created my large bee to mimic my small bee in case I wanted to use both sizes on a cookie, right? Like if I wanted this to be the queen bee and that to be the worker bees. So this one has enough room that you could pipe your black and your yellow separately and make the different segments of the body if you want to. If you do, go for it. But royal icing transfers are supposed to make your life easier, not more difficult. And when you get to the little cookie, you don't want to be piping different segments on the body. So we separated the little black here, and this is edible ink, so it's totally food safe. And then I just found the center, made a nose, made a cute little mouth and some eyeballs. And you notice I did not put antenna on the template because I did not want you to get confused and pipe that on your template. But here's what will happen. We will be putting this onto a cookie, a finished ice cookie, right? We'll be dropping it on the cookie. And wherever it comes down on the cookie, we're just going to quickly add some antennae, right? Isn't that cute? So actually it'll look proper because the antenna will look like it's like on the head or a little bit behind the head instead of these separate pieces, because they would be way too thick you would have to pipe them way too thick to get them to be secure to where they wouldn't break. Now, what you could do if you really don't want to use the edible marker pin for the antenna is you could use a 1 or 1.5 tip. Or if you're very good at cutting your tipless piping bags, you could certainly cut that to the proper size. And what you could do is pipe using black icing right on the cookie. However, I'll caution you, I've done that. Remember what I talked to you about color bleeding and colors leaching back and forth. If the icing's dry at the same time, you tend a dark icing next to a light icing. If they're drying at the same time, the moisture's leaving the icing at the same time. They don't tend to leach color or pull color. Do you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't move back and forth between the two. So on a royal icing transfer template, it's great because you can do all the colors at the same time normally. One of the other key things to making that work is that your base icing has white food coloring gel in it at the time you make the icing. That tends to help with the color bleed as well. So these guys will dry overnight. Tomorrow I'll come back and do the little bits on the body and then and the face. And then when we add them to the cookie, we'll add the antenna. So let's take a look here really quickly. We'll just be pulling this out. Just getting a hold of that template, pulling it out. It's on a piece of cake board. These can be set to the side and they can begin to dry as well. How many of you that are on here now were on with me earlier when my airbrush would not work? Anybody? It was a fun blooper reel camera moment. So I think I have the airbrush problem corrected. So what I'm going to do, I scraped that cookie that I did earlier. Oh, I don't know what that is. Hold on. I've got something else crazy going on here. There we go. My multiple cameras all popped up on the screen at the same time. So this is the cookie that I iced earlier. I'm just going to use a paper towel. I'm going to purge the tip. This is outline and flood consistency icing. So about a 15-second bag. I scraped this one. So if you ever have a mistake on a cookie and you don't want to leave it, for me, I wanted that really particular hexagon pattern. So although it looked really natural with doing the blotting with it, because my airbrush wouldn't work, that was fine. I wanted to come back and actually do it the way I intended to do it. So we're going to go ahead and just outline and flood this cookie and pop it in the dehydrator. And by the way, just so I know, can anyone actually even hear my dehydrator running right now? Do you hear it at all? I think it's fairly quiet, but I just want to make sure. I have a new mic and I want to make sure it's not picking up a lot of back noise. Is it super loud, like bothering you that it's on? Because I could move it further away from the camera for the next live stream and then just get up and down to get what I need out of it if I need to, if it's too bad for you. Okay. So some of you can hear it, some of you can't, right? All right, so let's just quickly flood this. I'm going to talk to you about flooding just while I'm doing it so that I can take my time to get this filled in properly. A lot of people on cookies outline their cookie with a separate consistency, and that's fine. I just find that I didn't need to do that. I don't have a lot of trouble using the consistency that I use with it running off the cookie. But the trade-off on that is that your icing could crust a little bit faster. So one of the things that I try to do instead of working around the cookie and filling to the center is I segment my cookie and I work in sections so that you see where I'm going back and where this icing is meeting up with the section I just finished. That's all still wet and it gives it plenty of time to crust together. Whereas working around a large area in a circle, you may not get as nice of a flood. You can also see I am putting plenty of icing on this cookie. I think that's one thing that affects new cookiers. Their flood icing or their icing consistency rather is not just right. And they don't realize that's actually what the problem is. So they're putting less icing on the cookie than what really should be on an iced sugar cookie. So working this way allows the icing to keep coming back together. And this is actually how I prefer to do it. If you have something that works better for you, that's perfectly fine. I'm just giving you a few tips and tricks because you guys know I like to do really big cookies sometimes just for fun, not to sell, but just as something to challenge myself and to create a little art piece. So one of the things that I found that worked really well was coming down in sections rather than going in circular. So I'm just going to turn for a second. If any of you have a dehydrator or are thinking about getting one, I love my Sasori. If you are interested, message me or drop a comment on here and I'll send you the link to it. It's fabulous. I run it at 109. If you are not to the point where you need a dehydrator yet, just get yourself a little desktop fan. Put a desktop fan on your cookies in between each of the icing stages and it'll give you a nice shine to your cookie, okay? All right, let's set that down and come back to the, no, let's do one more cookie and then we're going to come back to the, we're going to do one more cookie and then we're going to come back to the baby bees. So with my marker, this is an edible ink marker. I'm using black only because we're on camera and I want it to show up. If I were doing these for an order, it could also be of some concern that the black ink would bleed up into a lighter color when you put the wet royal icing on it. So if I were doing these for an order, what I typically use is yellow. I'm just using it as a guideline, but so that you can see it, I'm using black. So I'm going to be using either end of this. It doesn't matter, whichever one. I'm finding the natural break points on the outside of my cookie. And I don't want to go straight across so that my cookie has no dimension. A beehive would, in person, would be rounded. So we want to give it just a little bit of pop, right? A little bit of lift, circular motion to join our points so that when we do these separate sections, it looks a little bit rounded, right? I'm staying 1/8 of an inch back on each side of the cookie in case I don't want to ice all the way to the edge of the cookie. And I'm accounting for every place that there's a natural break. This is a great cookie to start practicing on. Here's the, because it is just going to be the one color and then we're going to do some airbrushing to give it some dimension. This is really fun. Watch this. This is also linked in your cookie cutters in the set of Bumblebee. It makes a beautiful baby bib as well. I love cutters you can flip and use for multiple purposes that look exactly like what they're supposed to, even if they're flipped, right? You don't have to use a lot of imagination here. My glass, Nadine, it's tea. Because in my coffee shop, it says buy Amy a tea or a cookie. So, and I'm a big tea drinker. So I have iced tea tonight. Okay, definitely. I see the request for the dehydrator information. So I'll send that to you after the live is over tonight. I'll send you a clickable link and check it out. I think when I got mine, it's Sasori. I love the model. One of the things I love is that the door is attached. So it's not one that you have to lift the door on and off. I also love it has a timer on it. And I really like that it has 6 shelves in it. So if I'm doing a lot of cookies, I literally just put my shelf, my little piece here. I've got the liners for it because I don't want bits of the cookie above to fall on bits of the cookie below when I'm taking it in and out, right? If my cookie's not fully dusted off. So I put the liners that I bought them separately and cut them to fit my dehydrator shelves. But I ice right on that dehydrator shelf and then pop the whole shelf in at one time because I don't want to be moving that around and cause those little fracture lines. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this. If you're not familiar with, Charlotte, I'm seeing your question about drying the cookie out. I keep mine set at 105 or less, and they're only in there for about 5 minutes just to get it to crust over. 5 to 10 minutes. I find for me with the humidity in my area, my cookies need to be in there for 10 minutes. If I pull them out sooner than that, that's when I tend to get those little fracture lines. So they go in, they just get crusted over, they come out and they go to a counter until I'm ready to go to the next stage, unless I'm ready to do the next stage right then, and then they just come right in front of me. But what I find is that there's usually 3 trays in, 3 trays out, and because it's a 6 tray unit. Okay, so what we're going to do is come back and we're going to fill in every other one because we want to gain some dimension on this cookie rather than just outlining the entire cookie and flooding it and then drawing the separations on it. because we're going to be adding these super cute bee transfers, we want to be able to draw on the little bee movement. We want to draw that on the cookie. So knowing that when I plan my cookie, I want to have different segments. I want dimension between each of these areas. So what we're going to do is come in here and we are going to outline. And again, this is probably 15 to 20 second outline and flood. Again, I'm only using the black pen for sketching because I want you to be able to see it on the video. You see I've quickly done an outline. Let's go ahead and fill that in. Now, do you see this is such a small area that I can do the whole outside? I'm not touching the cookie. I'm guessing most of you are familiar with outlining and flooding because I haven't seen any questions. But if you have questions, let me know. So I've just done my outline and my flood on that section. Now, because this is outline and flooding consistency, I can't do the section right next to it because if I do, they're just going to run together and become flat, like almost like a wet on wet technique, right? They're going to come together. So when I am using this consistency of icing, it is really important to keep your segments separate. So we'll do this. We'll pop it in the dehydrator for a few minutes and then we'll circle back to it. Okay. And I'm going to show you a finished cookie from earlier. Well, it's finished in that I wanted to show them how to attach the royal icing transfers to it. So really, I would have liked to have shaded it using my airbrush, but my airbrush was not working. I did not clean it properly after the Frosting Creators of San Antonio show on Sunday. Even though I put water in the drum, I forgot. I was so tired. I just forgot to clean it out that night. And since I hadn't cleaned it out, what happened was it got a clog. So I thought I had it fixed in time for the live. I took the whole thing apart and cleaned it. But then when I actually went to use it, I still had a little bit of a clog. So this cookie, my sections not touching, they're all done. After this has been in the dehydrator, we'll come back and we'll finish this, and both of these at the same time because they won't be touching each other at that point. Okay. So let's pop that in there. Let's just pull the other tray out just a little bit to see what our crusting looks like. Yeah, it needs a little bit more time in there. Now, because we're on camera and I don't want this to take all night, if you see this in the video later and you can see my temperature, I just kicked the temperature up to have that dry fast because no one's going to be eating these cookies. And I definitely want a chance to show you how to do the airbrushing before we log off tonight since I had the problem with my gun earlier. But just so you know, the temperature really should not ever be above 105 when you're doing a dehydrator like that, okay? So I'm just cleaning the tip on my toothpaste consistency yellow and white. And we're going to be going back right now. And we're going to do the wings again. But look how tiny these bees are, right? No big deal. No big deal that these are little. We're going to do it exactly like we did the larger ones. You're just not going to use as much pressure to get the icing out of the bag. And if you want, you can go back to earlier in the video if you're joining us late, and I explain the best way to start doing your template if you're right-handed versus being left-handed, okay? So we're going to run through these, a little piping, pull it over to cross on the body. A little bit of pressure, it's touching down. I'm bringing it up to join this wing. And then I'm going to go all the way across this whole row. Now, because we did the large ones and I went slowly so that you would have a good reference point to visualize it, these I'm going to go across here a little faster, okay? Now, if you have questions, you can pop them in. I will stop and go back and show you something. This is just a miniature of what we've already done. So now being that I'm right-handed, it's at an angle. I've started at the left side and I've run all the way across to the right. If I were doing this entire transfer sheet, I'd drop down a row, do those and turn it. But for the purposes of our demo tonight, I'm just going to go ahead and flip this around. All right, let's bring that. I'm trying to get it where I can pipe it easily, but there's not a glare on the particular area we're working on, okay? So why don't let's pull that in there and see if this helps a little bit. Yeah, we made the queen bees earlier. Now these are worker bees. So it's turned, hopefully most of the glare is off that. And we're going to, again, start at the left because I'm right-handed, and we're going to work to the right. That way there's less chance I'm going to drag my hand through the icing, okay? So a little bit of pressure, pulling over, joining the other wings. If I don't like how much is there, just go back really quickly and give it another squirt. Same thing here, coming over. I'm going to move through these pretty quickly. These templates are available for sale in my coffee shop. If you watch a little further back, or maybe somebody that's on can drop the link in again for anybody that's popping in right now. So large squeeze, then pulling down almost to a teardrop. If there's extra icing, don't worry about it. It's just going to make for a stronger transfer. So big squeeze to start my circle, then pull it out, teardrop, big squeeze, pull it out, joining all 4 of the wings on each of these. You're going to be so shocked if you haven't done your bees like this before. You're going to be so shocked at how high of a percentage of usable transfers you're going to get out of this. Really, if you take them off slowly enough, you are not going to have any trouble. You'll probably have 100% and no 100% usable and no breakage. Okay, so craters, we talked about that just a little bit earlier, Charlotte, but one of the things that, one of the reasons it's good to do the transfers instead of piping right on the cookie is so that if you do get something with the crater, you're not on your actual cookie when you're doing it. If you get one with this, you just throw it out. However, because this is such a thick icing, there's not a lot of water content to it. You won't get a lot of cratering because it doesn't have a lot to evaporate. Okay, so we're going to do the bodies. We're going to flip this back around for a right-handed person. Again, it's going to be a little difficult to see because I'm going to start straight up and down where the 4 wings come together and start my body. All right, and then I'll tip it so you can see I'm just working back and forth to make that little body. I'm using the natural movement of pulling the tip out of the body to get a nice point at the bottom. You see that? And really, if you're scared about doing that point, just look, watch this. It's so cute. This is how I did my first batch. I just did an oval for the body. Okay, they're so small. They definitely, when you look at them, it reads like a bee. It's not in question what it is. My oval is starting right above where the wings join, and I'm just pressure piping to get that nice, I want that nice texture because bees are fuzzy, so this saves me from having to do any additional painting or anything. All right, can you see what we're doing there? Let's pull this down a little, right over top of where the wings join, start the body, come down this way a little. Okay, and you see I'm making transfers. I'm not stopping to use my scribe in between every one of these. Every time you pick up your scribe, if you're cooking for money, that's costing you time, and time is money. So one of the reasons to do these is so you can do a bunch ahead of time and be ready to go. Because this icing is so thick, it is like a, you know, I'm going to say it's stiff peak. It's not an icing that I think would settle down unless you manipulate it. And by manipulate it, I mean using your scribe and jiggling it. It's going to stay exactly like you pipe it. That's the right consistency for these little guys. So because we're using that consistency, we can flip the transfer around and come right back and do the heads. Okay. So I'm just piping that cute little round head. A little jiggle will knock that tip off. Because it's so thick, when you pull your bag away, you tend to get that little tip. Little bit of jiggle, just that little bit is going to keep that tip from occurring, because any of those little pieces that are sticking up like this, can you see that? Let me lift it and see if you can see it. I don't know if the camera will focus that close or not. But see that little tip? That's natural when you're using an icing this thick to have that when you pull the bag out. That's going to break off in your bag. It's either going to break off when you're drawing your little cute bee face on there, or it's going to break off once you actually put it in a cookie bag. So you do want to take the time to fix that if you need to, okay? All right, so again, we're just up and down motion to create a natural circle. We're not outlining and flooding a circle. We're starting right in the center, and then a good amount of pressure. We get that beautiful little bee head. A little jiggling with the bag takes care of the tip. You're going to hear this in your sleep tonight. So when you go to make bee cookies, you're going to hear me say, just a little bit of jiggle, no tip, knock the point off so it doesn't make a mess in your bag. So starting right in the center of where the head would be, where the circle underneath is, a little jiggle. Now, the first one I did, it didn't look as cute as the last one I did. You do get better at them. So make sure you do plenty. Don't just do the 5 that you need. Do 20 or 25. You know, they're quick enough. They're small enough. It's easy to do if you've already got everything set up. So these guys can go to the side. They'll be dry tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll draw the little lines on. I'll use a fine point pen. If you happen to have the Tweets pen, I don't know if you guys know about these. See. That is the Tweets, the brush tip, which is a 02, I think. This one is an 03. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That is a 20. So the 20 is a brush tip. The 03 is this little fine point, right? So this little tiny fine point is great for using on the baby bees, right? On the worker bees. So we've got these little guys. They're ready to go to the side. Again, if I was making more of these, you guys, all I would need to do is reach into my bag, leave the piece of heavy duty cardstock or cake board that you put in there, slide this out, take this out, this little template out, and slide it right into another cello bag, and you can keep working, okay? All right, let's set that over here because I'm actually going to use some of those. I don't want them to get damaged. And let's come back and talk about another technique that Marlon taught us last year. I think you can tell on camera that my edges go downward. I rounded it like an egg has a rounded appearance. So last year, Marlon taught us this cool trick where you use press and seal and put it over the cookie dough, and then you cut out the cookie. And the pressure from that press and seal presses down on your cookie dough and naturally rounds the edge. So if you want to get really fancy, since this is an item that has a rounded finish to it, you could use the press and seal and create an even more rounded edge where it's rounding down this way. So again, found the natural edges on my cookie, just the same as before. Found the natural edges, did my line, drawing in black edible ink just so that you can see it on camera. And I'm coming across there and I'm doing an arced motion in my line so that it gives it a little more roundedness. I also marked where I wanted the hole to be. This is so simple. All I did for this, let's see, give me 1 second. I don't want to use another paper towel if I don't have to there. I put a little bit of black icing in there. I want a very, very low profile black outline. So I put a little icing and then I used my boo-boo stick and just made sure I fully covered the circle that I was using, okay? The area that I wanted to make my opening into my beehive. All right, so now what we're going to do is I marked my sections, my alternating sections, and we're going to come back and outline and flood those. And I'm going to start with this section first because remember, I want my icing to be, Nadine, I'm not sure what that question is, but maybe somebody answered it. If not, pop in what the original question was again. I must have missed that. So what I'm going to do is do my icing where the other wet icing is so that my colors don't transfer as easily, right? We talked about that earlier. So I'm just doing a basic circle outline here. I come back over here a little bit for you. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and do my arced line. I'm staying just in a little bit. Even more important when you're using a flood consistency icing, when you have that rounded downward edge, you want to stay in just a little bit to give the icing room to expand. I do have my cookie turntable here, but it's just this one cookie that I need to flip around this much while I'm doing this center area. So I'm not going to pull it out, but a cookie turntable, super handy. I also linked a really nice acrylic one in the supply list for you today. And it comes with a couple of little scribes and also a little bit of that material that keeps your cookies from skidding. Looks like shelf liner or shelf adhesive paper, but it's really not. It's made for those turntables. So you see we just did a basic outline in flood. You can see that it's rounding off that cookie, right? So let's go ahead and do these areas here, just so you can get the idea of what this looks like. And then we're going to check the cookies that are in the dehydrator. Hopefully the airbrush gun is going to work. And hopefully that one cookie is dry enough that we can try to do that honeycomb grid on it. I want you to see what that looks like. And then we're going to do a little drip area on there as well. And then I'll show you a small beehive cookie that we finished earlier. Just what it looked like in the sketching we did. So you'll have an idea what the photo of these is going to look like when I finish them off tomorrow. If you are a local person and you are on watching me, I'll be at the store tomorrow. We are contactless curbside still. So you can phone in at 10 and place your order. If you phoned in an order on Saturday for tomorrow, you know, pickup start at 11. If you selected a later pickup time, that's fine. But you certainly can call in at 10 and place an order for pickup at 11, and I will do my best to have that for you. And all the flavors are pinned to the top post on our Facebook page. We are fully booked up on our custom spaces through, I think it's July 29th now. Once they lifted the COVID restrictions for outdoor and indoor in our area, the schedule filled up immediately. So if you waited too long to get an order in, I'm super sorry, but I can still do regular cupcakes for you, but I won't be able to do cookies or cupcakes, okay? Sorry, cookies or custom cakes. That's what I meant to say. Those spaces are full through July 29th, and that is on the message if you read the auto reply. But I do really like this rounded technique because it's just another way to put a little more dimension on the cookie without a lot of effort, right? So let's pop this dehydrator open. I'm just going to slide it in on a separate shelf. And I want to check that first cookie that we did and see. Yeah, I think we actually could airbrush this. Now, this is not dry all the way through. It's just been in the dehydrator for the last 20 minutes or so. But I think that it's dry enough that it will hold up to the stencil. Okay, so we're going to give that a try and see what happens. And look, I also went back and put it in front of, can you see it? I'm not sure if you can see. Let's pull it. You see my cute little bees? I pulled out this stencil. We're going to see about maybe stenciling that on one of these other cookies if they get done in time. If not, I'll add that tomorrow. I have two different stencil frames. I have one that is adjustable, which I do really like because I can use stencils that are not just 5 by 5 inches in it. Or if I need to do a stencil on a much larger cookie, I like to use the adjustable one. If my cookie's still too large and I need to airbrush, then I just use magnets. I have magnets that I just use for food purposes. So they've been cleaned. They're in a separate container. But I love this little grid, this hexagon grid. So what we're going to do is just put that over the cookie. It's gently resting on there. And now we're going to hope the airbrush works. If the airbrush doesn't work, then I will have to soak it overnight and give you a quick video tomorrow. But I'm not going to try the blotting because this cookie has not been hasn't been drying overnight. The other cookie, I just went ahead and tried to do a knockoff version of stenciling on it by doing a blot just to get through the demo to show you what it was, how it was supposed to look. And I'm just putting 2 or 3 drops of airbrush, and tonight I'm just using Woodland Brown. I'm going to use it to highlight. So anyway, let's see if this works. So I'm going to test it on a paper towel. Oh, look, it's working. Yay! So exciting. Okay, so I'm going to stay on camera here for you guys. This is actually touching my cookie all the way across. If it were not, then I would just be using my thingamajiggy to hold it down so that I didn't get a lot of underspray, right? Because there's a lot of pressure from the air coming out of the cordless air gun. This is also linked in the supply list. It's my favorite air gun. It was around $49. It's cordless. I love it. You can see I keep the back end off of it in case I need to pull this out because it moves the needle here. So if I am doing a metallic or something, it's just faster. So I have it set up that way. Now, if I was using a super powerful airbrush, I would need to hold this. And I prefer when I airbrush to do light coats. I'm barely touching the trigger I don't want to move this now because I don't want to mess up the stencil, but I'm barely touching the trigger. And what I'm doing is just building up light layers of color. And I'm going to focus on this bottom part of the cookie because we're going to do a honey drip at the top. So I'm just going to work back and forth here. If you go in light layers, this airbrush color dries very quickly. So you can do a lot of cookies without having to stop and wash your stencil. It's not like when you're scraping PYO cookies and you can only do 12 cookies or so, and then the stencils have to be washed. So, when you're doing a PYO, it's worth buying 4 or 5 of your stencils so that you don't have to get up as often to wash those, right? And if you do PYOs every year, you know what I'm talking about. You feel my pain. Also, keeping this in the same direction as I'm airbrushing at an angle, but from the right, shooting towards the left. What's nice, because my stencil's fitting so great on my cookie, what's really good here is that I'm kept it all, it's going to look even when I lift the stencil, right? Because the air is coming from the same thing here. All right, hold on. I'm lifting straight up. So see, we have that really fun honeycomb on there and barely any ink on here. Isn't that fun? Love it. All right, let's set that off to the side. Now we're going to cookie turntable in. Don't deceive yourself and let yourself think that this turntable is not necessary when you're airbrushing edges. You can easily mess up a cookie by not turning fast enough or not paying attention, right? So let's move this up a little bit so you can see. I want to just give a little hint of a darkening to the edges of my cookie and to the icing. So I'm just lightly hitting it to knock some of that brightness of that yellow. And oh, by the way, tonight I'm using gold by Hobby Lobby from the Sunny Side Up line. So you can see I have that nice pattern. And now what I'm doing is I'm just dulling the edges of my cookie. I don't want to soak them. I don't want them to be dark brown. I don't want a lot of color saturation, but I just want to dull them a little bit, okay? So this one looks great, right? Look how fabulous that turned out. That should have been what happened at 1:30 today, but blooper reel is fun too. So we're going to set this to the side and come back to it. I'm going to pull out one of these other cookies that we did earlier. And what I'm going to do in between on this, I like to do it in between. You certainly can do it after the whole cookie is iced. But since I have the color in my airbrush gun, I'm going to go ahead and just hit the edges of these alternating layers. It's going to give it a little more definition when I come back and put in the final layers. And then when I get to the end of this cookie, when it's set up a little bit more, I'll be coming back and just going around the outside edge. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to lift it so you can see it. So I just have a little bit of a haze. And I don't want that on the whole cookie. I want to have some nice dimension in there, right? So let's let that set just for a minute. This one, because I want to show you what it looks like with diamond dust. Hey, South Africa is in the house. How are you? So this, I'm going to go ahead and pop it back in the dehydrator, not because the icing needs it, but because I want the paint to be super dry, because when I do the drip, I'm going to hit it with this beautiful gold edible diamond dust. It's called 10 Karat Gold by Sugar Art. I love this. It's so pretty. So because I want to do that, everything else needs to be totally dry when we go back and do the drip. If it's not dry, what's going to happen is that diamond dust is going to stick to the whole cookie instead of just the drippy honey part. So you could go back, you guys, and when I do the drippy honey part, you could let it set up overnight and come back and paint it using some Everclear and some of the gold luster dust. You could mix that up and do that. I just really like the diamond dust because you've also got the sparkle, but you're not having to go back and hand paint. If you're selling these for money, then hand painting takes a lot of time. All right, so let's just go ahead and finish these sections. And as soon as I finish flooding it, I'll lift it up, because that's when it's going to be super obvious to you what that little bit of highlighting did to our beehive. What that little bit of highlighting with the airbrush did to the beehive and what a difference it makes. So because I thoroughly splashed those 3 sections with a little bit of that brown, the colors that are going to be in between it now are going to seem so bright. And that's why all we're going to need to do to get that extra dimension is hit the outside of the cookie. Okay. And don't forget, if you're joining us late, somebody pop the link in for them, please, that the templates are for sale in my coffee shop. You'll also get 4 downloads in that purchase today. You get a complete supply list from the video I did earlier today with Marlon of Montreal Confections at Cookie Therapy, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. You get this my supply list from today, plus 3 royal icing transfer templates. And then if you go back and watch the beginning of this video, I give you the short version of how to construct those royal icing transfer templates so that you can move through them fast, how to build a good stable transfer. Now, look already, you guys, it looks like we have 2 different colors of icing, but we're using the same icing bag. So let's take a look. Do you see what I mean? So it's the same color of icing. I don't have 15 colors of icing going here. What I have is toothpaste consistency in white, black, and the gold, because I made my transfers with that. And then I have a flood outline consistency that I'm doing the larger cookies with. And that's all I'm working with. This is not a complicated project. You need those 3 toothpaste consistencies, the 1 flood outline consistency, and a black edible ink marker. So totally, you could go Winnie the Pooh on this if you wanted to and keep it super simple with your colors, but the set looks so fancy. With just a little bit of airbrushing, we're leveling up a level, okay? So let's pop this in and let that crust over, because I want to come back to this one and show you how to attach the bees in a little bit. All right, let's pull out the other one. Let's pull that one out. Oop, look, I just put my finger in the edge. This is why I leave my cookies on the dehydrator trays and not pulling out individual cookies when I'm actually working on things for customers, right? Because you know you're going to put your finger in it. Now, I was able to recover on that one because I could push it right back down and it looks like it's healing up. But if it didn't, what I would have to do is scrape that area and I'd have to go again, okay? Now, let me ask you... Let's see, what would be a fun question for you to put in the feed if you're still on here with me? What is your favorite candy? Either your favorite candy to eat or your favorite candy to use on a cookie. Drop that in the feed really quick while I'm doing a quick outline and flood on these areas. Now, just so you know, I did not go airbrush this one because I want to pop this one back in the dehydrator and show you the difference of what airbrushing the segments looks like, the way I did on the first cookie, versus trying to go in between and hit the highlight area, okay? So I did that on purpose. I normally would have done the segments that were crusted over and then done an outline and flood, but I want to show you what it looks like. You just forget to do it. Let's just say you forget. You got to go back. You all know it happens. You get tired. You're flying through cookies. You're trying to go as fast as you can, as many as you can to get done because you didn't start till 6 o'clock at night and they're due the next day. You know you've done it. I know you've done it. So I'm going to show you what the difference looks like. It's not a huge difference in my opinion. It is worth the time if it's for somebody's wedding, or obviously if you charged them for it, you need to do it. But if it's just a matter of your preference and you forget to do it, I'm going to show you what it looks like and compare the 2 things together, okay? You see, I'm just working back and forth. Because those other sections are fully crusted over, it's making a totally unique section where I'm doing the filling, okay? Do you see what I mean? Can you see in the shadows there? I mean, these definitely look... They have a lot of dimension. They're definitely separate, okay? All right, let's pop that one in. And I think that was enough on the other one that we just did. This is going to end up being my favorite cookie. I'm so sorry it didn't work during cookie therapy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a honeycomb drip. Okay, and then we're going to hit it with some gold diamond dust, edible diamond dust, okay? Oh yeah, mini M&Ms, chocolate covered sunflower seeds. Oh yeah, those mini Reese's peanut butter cups that I used to do the Memorial Day serving tray. I love those cookies because it's like peanut butter on your cookie. What's not to like? Oh, British Dairy Milk Chocolate or Rogers. Yes. Oh my God. Rogers chocolate from Canada. Amazing. Nadine hooks me up. She takes care of me. By the way, Nadine, I have one lonely little chocolate left and it's not going to survive tonight. 6 p.m. the night before is how you roll. I know it's so hard. Sometimes life just gets in the way, right? Sometimes life gets in the way or you take too many orders. Now, guys, I want this to be really natural looking. So I'm not drawing this on here, but if you are a little OCD and you definitely need it to look a certain way, or you're going to be writing in this area, it's okay to sketch on top. It's okay to sketch if you want to, if you feel better about it. Now, let me tell you another little handy trick. You know those little squares of parchment paper that I like to use, those little 5x5 by Xenology? They're linked in some previous supply lists, but I keep those handy. And the reason I do that, if I'm ever working on a cookie and I'm just not really sure how I want everything to fall out on the cookie, if the cookie is crusted, I will lay that piece of parchment on top of the cookie, and then I can sketch 2 or 3 different designs by just switching out my piece of parchment paper to see how I want it to look before I actually put icing down on there, right? So it just helps me a little bit. A lot of people use Procreate. I am not proficient in that Procreate program. I am going to learn it. I am going to learn how to use it because I want to be able to design and draw in there. But if you don't have that, don't get worried about not having all the things. Just do your thing, okay? Now I want this drip to come down just a little bit further. Now, this is the fun part. You know that I like to put diamond dust on my cookies, right? You know I love it. So I'm just going to shield as much as I can. I know I can't shield up in that area, but it's been in the dehydrator. It should be dry enough that if I let this sit overnight, then I can go back with a brush and brush off the extra. But I want this, to get out of the glare there for you. I want this to adhere to what I just did that is wet. And this is completely edible. It's food safe. It's not just non-toxic. It's also food safe. So let me lift that for you. Do you see that? How that was like what, 4 seconds versus, a minute of painting and the expense of the other gold that you paint with? Look at the shine, right? And so what I'll do is I will take the airbrush gun once I've cleaned it and I'm sure there's no color or sputter. And tomorrow I'll use the airbrush gun and just hit this with some air. And the areas where the glitter hit that are dry, that will come off. But you never want to blow on someone's cookie. I mean, my goodness, if people are not broken of those terrible habits after having survived the last year and getting to the other side of the pandemic, I don't know what will help them, but never blow or spit on a customer's cookies. This is why I really can't eat birthday cake that's had candles in it anymore. After taking too many food safety courses and they tell you about all that stuff, it's really hard to eat cake after somebody's blown out the candles. That's why I really love it when the parents order separate little cakes for the kids. So anyway, just my thing. So this will come off really easily tomorrow. I'll just hit it with a little dust from the airbrush, okay? But I'm going to pop it back in the dehydrator just for a second, mainly so I can open the door and see if the other cookies are ready. Let's see what we've got going on here. All right, so let's pull this little guy out. It seems to have enough of a crust on it, and I love this one. This is the one that you can flip and make a great baby bib with it. The other thing that's really good, it's very hard for people to understand why custom sugar cookies cost so much. They cost so much because they take so long to make, and they're little works of art. I mean, you're not cranking out like using a hand scooper and making 2 dozen chocolate chip cookies. Like that's why this cookie starts at $3. So usually on cookies, it's $1 per inch based on the tallest part or widest part of the cookie. That's where you would get your measurement from. So my pricing is similar to the Sugar Bell. I think it's Sugar Bell that has the pricing chart. It's really similar to that. Hold on one sec. Let me read this question. I don't have an airbrush. Would dry. Yes, you could definitely use dry petal dust and just dress it on, put it on once it's dry. You could do it with a really fluffy brush. Okay. So pricing right now, I'm still pretty much using that chart for the area I'm in, but I have to tell you, there's some significant price changes coming to everybody. If you haven't been paying attention, butter is up, oil is up, everything is up except my powdered sugar that I use in all of my recipes. Some of the things are up 2 and 3 times. Our packaging, the freight on getting our packaging into our store was triple on the last order when we restocked our boxes. Our boxes were up almost double. Like, there's a lot of things coming that you guys really are going to have to stop. While it's understandable for your customers to understand why prices are going up, you're going to have to stop and recost your items. It's not doing you any good to work for free. If you're working to make money to support yourself, your family, you know, if you're working for a business, it's not doing you any good to give everything away for free. So as we near the end of the pandemic, I know we're still in it. I'm not saying we're not, but as we're coming to the other side of that, you're going to start seeing prices go up that are not going to come back down on certain items. So you're going to have to take the time and recost your items. And I think once you do that, what you're going to see is that it's pretty significant price increases. So a cookie that I could have maybe done for $3 last year may have to be $3.50, $3.60, $3.75. And that's for a basic cookie that's hand decorated. Then you want lettering, or you want metallic, or you want hand painting, or you want it custom designed to match something. Those are all upcharges based on what you want on the cookie. You know, more than 3 or 4 colors in an order adds to your price. So it's just about educating your customer, because people that want these particular kinds of cookies, they tend to be okay with that. It's not a big deal to them. If somebody's really wanting bulk cookies for a party, that's something entirely different. Maybe you need to make them a chocolate chip cookie platter, a brownie platter, something like that. Do you know what I mean? No, Olga, she didn't. We both split the time today. It was great. It's just I had trouble with my airbrush. So I wanted to come back on after I got my airbrush fixed. So you guys remember this. Now, typically, I would just leave this cookie just like this, because the airbrushing made my alternating sections look very different. So it looked like I piped with 2 colors, even though I just did the one. So what I'm going to do is just quickly and lightly. Let me see if I can raise this up on frame so you can see how far away from the cookie I am. And I think I need some more tea. Okay, I didn't know how long you'd been on. It's hard to keep up. The comments are coming in from a couple places, and so they're rolling fast. So what I'm going to do, I just want to highlight the edges. I don't want to get coloring on the center parts of the ones that I did not airbrush earlier. Again, I just want to knock down the brightness of my blonde cookie and put a little bit of a shadow around the sides of my hive here. So as I was flipping it, did you guys really clearly see that baby bib? Look, I'll turn it back. You see the baby bib? Totally could use this for baby bib. Okay, and so this is our little beehive. So cute, right? Now for tonight, we're just going to drop the queen bee on. We're not going to be able to do the antenna because this icing is not crusted enough, but I just want to give you a couple pointers before we circle back to the other cookie. So on to the side, cleaning the tip of this bag, see how it crusts over? For me, it's easier to just let it crust over and then pull that little tip off than it is to squeeze out a bunch of icing and fold it over. I feel like I waste less product. So I'm using the same color underneath my transfer, just in case I put too much on and it oozes out. I'm also using my flood consistency to adhere to the cookie so that it's a little more liquid as it hits the cookie. And I know I want my queen bee to fly up. So did you see where I placed her? Placing her at the top like this is going to allow me to do a really cool trail line with a heart right here that looks something like this. This is a mini bee. Yeah, baby. I love it. Baby bib. Yeah, we could do baby bib on here. You know, Marlon has a beautiful bee themed onesie that is a gender reveal cookie, like a piñata type shaker. Super cute. So you guys check that out too. This is a mini beehive that I used the big cutter. I used this cutter and just took off the top section because I needed to mix in some smaller cookies too. You don't want everything to look identical. Usually people sell cookies, they're selling them by the dozen, so you don't want it to look too much the same. So here's my 3 little bees, and then this cookie was fully crusted over, so I went and did the little trail marks. The thing I didn't do earlier, I saved it so I could show you tonight, is what we'll be doing on this cookie tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll go back when this is fully crusted and we'll draw the little antenna on right there, okay? And we'll draw the little bee line on. And then I'll put pictures up tomorrow evening when I get home from the shop. So I'm going to pop this down. And for this, because the bees are so small, I'm going to go ahead and use my Fine Points Tweet cookie marker. I'm turning the bees upside down because I want to get my marker in as close to the little bee head as possible. And I just want to make this cute little curly and then make a little dot on the end so it looks like a pom-pom. You don't have to do the pom-pom. I just think it's cutesy. I like it. So I'm going to put that on mine. And I'm getting close to the head so that it looks like the antenna is coming right out of the little head. Let's make this guy a little floppy. Right? They shouldn't all be matchy. All right. Let's do a little pom-pom and then come from the head out to it because I have to draw that on a rounded section. So I did that one working backwards. All right, there we go. You see how cute? Let me lift that up for you. And we managed to get a little heart in the bee buzz trail there. So aren't these so cute? I love it. Now let's see if the big cookie is crusted over enough that I can show you how to do the highlights going across in the sections. Here's the problem with trying to have a really powerful airbrush. You could so easily put too much color on your cookie. I mean, it would be nothing to just really way too quickly oversaturate the highlight color. Now I'm just going to show you this one again. Okay, and what we'll be doing tomorrow is I'll be adding a queen bee to this and one of the little heart trails, and then I'll be getting this extra diamond dust off the cookie, okay? But you get the idea, and I just picked this shape because honestly, I already had this cookie made from last week. This is my serving tray cookie turned sideways. This would be beautiful on a beehive cookie, on a hexagon cookie would be absolutely perfect to fit your, no, that was my dehydrator, Jennifer, when I turned it off. But you can make my coffee shop ding. That would be fun. So anyway, on a hexagon, then you would not only have the bee theme reading in your mind from it being a hexagon, you've got the hexagon pattern and airbrush on your cookie, you've got dripping honey, so much fun. And it didn't come in time for this class, but I'll probably use it for next week. I actually got a honey dipper cookie cutter in Saturday. It arrived. So I think, yeah, hexagons or bestagons. I love them. They're great for everything. I'll be doing that dipper next week too, I think, during cookie therapy at 1 Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. I'll be doing that one with Mar next week. Okay, so let me fold this over and put an additional paper towel here. I don't like to clean airbrush off my turntable. Couldn't think of what it was called. I don't like to clean that off. I don't like to get that wet. So I like to keep it covered with a paper towel. And also I'm going to show you a trick here in just a second. Oh, look. And so on that curved cookie, do you see a little bit of the icing came off? So let me just take this and take that off. Not a big deal. I'm just going to work it back to the side of the cookie carefully. If I don't wreck the crust on the top of the cookie, no one's ever going to notice that we had that little overage, okay? And then I'm just going to set that off to the side. All right, and we're going to work. Let's get this off so I don't put my hand in it. Now what we're going to do, this is lightly crusted over. I kind of feel the same way about airbrushing cookies like this that Mar does. They don't have to be fully overnight dried to start airbrushing if you're not saturating it. If you're just highlighting it, you can hit it and go on and keep moving. All right, so my dehydrator is totally off. It's right over here. If the sound is hugely different, you guys let me know. I don't remember where this shape came from. All right, I'm not positive. I'm seeing that you like this shape. I think this shape might be from Katrina at Dots and Bows. So, but I'm not sure if it's one of her club exclusive cutters. There's 2 cutters a month you get if you're a club member that people can't order. They never go into her regular lineup. I'm not sure if this is one of those, maybe from February, but I really feel like this cutter might be from Katrina. So if any of the DB cookie crews on here with me, maybe you know, or you can drop a link in if it's for sale on Katrina's site. But she makes a lot of cutters for me for my specialty classes. So I always try and work in a cutter. So I'm pretty sure this is her cutter. And I do not remember where the serving tray is from, but the serving tray, I showed you how to make your own just using a rectangle cutter last week. All right. Well, I'm glad you guys are liking this. Nice. So today we're really focusing on just beehives, the different ways to do the beehives, because next week during cookie therapy, I'm going to do some actual bees for you. Now, I think I have just enough color in here that we can keep going. Okay. So let me show you the other reason I like to use the paper towels. You can create a shield. So if you have a lot of things around you and you don't want the airbrush color going everywhere, you can just use this like a little shield. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is just lightly highlight around the outside edges for dimension on that rounded edge. Do you know how we did the cutter? We cut the cookie dough out using the press and seal over top of it. You could use saran wrap. Needs to be done on frozen or almost totally frozen dough so that you can get that saran wrap off easily. So I'm going to lift this so you can see it. This is if you forget to do your segments in between, and I like to do my alternating segments, do a light airbrush mist, then go back and do my flood and fill, because I like for it to look like I use 2 colors, even though I only have 1 icing bag going. But on this, do you see, I just got the dusting around the edge of the cookie to darken it up a little bit, like to dirty it up so it doesn't look so shiny cookie-ish. It looks a little more natural. Now, let me show you, if you're very careful and you do not have a super high-powered airbrush, you can come back in here, angled, turn the cookie so that you're working in the grooves, and you can add a lot of dimension by just barely, lightly hitting the grooved areas. And I'll lift it. It's a little hard to see when it's this far from the camera, so I'll lift it, but I'm not spraying the whole cookie. I'm just trying to create a little shadow, and I have my gun angled a little like this, plus just in the groove. So it's creating a shadow on the cookie. And I'm doing it in very light layers. I'm going to lift this so you can see it. All right. And the reason that I'm shading the underside is because if this beehive were sitting upright, then it's the under part of the curve that would have a little darkness to it because it wouldn't be getting light there. So you have to figure out where your light source would also be coming onto your cookie. So let me show you this. Let me lift it so you can see what we just did. So can you see that what I tried to do is underneath the rounded part is where we added our shadowing, because our light would be coming from this direction, right? On the beehive, it'd be coming top down, not down up, right? So check this out. And it just dirties it up just enough that it's so cute. Now, you could absolutely put bees on this cookie. You could come back and just for fun, you could put a mini beehive on the cookie. You could leave it just like this. If I had outlined this cookie, flooded it flat, done a cool airbrush with my hexagon, hit that with a little diamond dust, then I could have come back. Now, you can't really do this with this cookie because I've made too many layers at this point. Hold on. I haven't moved, so I know it's here. But you could, if you had outlined and flooded, you could come back and then airbrush your bee on. Now, I'm willing to try the airbrush bee as long as you understand that it may not airbrush well because I've got a ridge where the stencil is going to be laying. So I'll do my best to go up and down, but it's going to block the camera just a little bit. But I think that we should try it while I'm trying it and you're not trying it during an order, right? So let's just get as much of that bee. Let's see, I need to get it kind of in the middle of my stencil. So you see that my stencil is not fully in my frame because I want to use this bee, and I know what I want it up in this part of the cookie. And I kind of want to have a little bit of the pressure from the weight on top of this. But do you see what I'm talking about right here? If I'm not super careful when I do this, I'm going to have a lot of underspray because I've got that's where the groove in the cookie is. But let's give it a try. I'll stay up and down as much as possible and we'll see what happens, okay? May turn out better than we think, but what's an experiment if we don't actually do the experiment, right? So I'm building up light layers back and forth, being very careful to try to stay a straight up and down motion as much as I can. I do not have any black airbrush color here, so I'm building up that woodland brown that I used to give the shadows. All right, now I'm not going to risk it by going any darker. And I'm also going to pick straight up because I put a lot of color on there. Oh, now see, it did turn out cute. However, I should have waited till the cookie was totally dry. So we'll know that for next time. So it will work. But you see it, my stencil, because of the weight of the stencil, it picked up a little bit of this icing right here. So what I'm going to do is go back and just kind of dirty that up a little bit with my airbrush gun so it's not so noticeable when the cookie dries. Just going to give it a little more highlight from this side because I'm not going to scrape it and redo it. But look, you guys, it did actually work. I'm going to hold it up as close as possible. I feel like I got the full bee. Now, let me tell you what else I would do to fix something like that. If I have any left. Do I have any left? Let's see. I can come back and use my baby bees from earlier, and we can drop some 3D baby bees on there. Or I can wait until tomorrow until my queen bees are set up. But look how easy that is to cover up that little defect. And nobody but you and me and the other 21 people that are watching are going to know that was even there. So look how much dimension we created on this cookie by using just a little bit of airbrush shadowing. You know, again, it's just 4 colors of 4 colors for your royal icing tonight. And that made our transfers and our cookies. That's fabulous. So we've got transfers going on here. We've got some hand sketching because we're doing the bee trails. We were able to do a nice queen bee on here. We used on this cookie in particular, remember we used the saran wrap to get that extra rounding edge. Now, you can't tell a lot right now what that looks like, but when I take photos out in the sunshine tomorrow and it's done in natural light, all of that stuff is really going to show up. And that leads me to my last point of the night. And then I'm going to let you guys go because you've been so great to stay on here with me for so long tonight and let me just go at a nice slow pace and enjoy this. When you have cookies that are going to be outside, first thing you want to remember in the summertime, no matter where you are, unless your summertime is your winter time, I don't know, but whenever your hot temperature is, no modeling chocolate on your cookies and very limited fondant, because even if you're using fondant with Tylose in it, it will still heat up and get super soft. Okay, so you want to be really careful to take those 2 things into consideration. And you need to guide your customers. If your customers come to you and they want a cookie and it's got a big fondant piece on it, or let's say they want brooches and you've just asked them, is this an indoor or outdoor? Is it in June, July, or August? And they've said August and outside. It doesn't matter if it's in the shade. August outside is going to be over 80 degrees. You need to try to explain to them and educate them about why some of the things they want are not good things, that it will wreck their cookies. Okay, so for instance, if someone wants a nice molded picture frame around their cookie, you need to explain to them, yes, good, great, this is indoors, but should you change your mind and move this outdoors, then this is not a good cookie for that particular event because as soon as you put this in the heat, this is going to collapse, right? So there's things that you know that they don't know, and you shouldn't be expecting them to know. So just help them through that so that they have a good experience. But coming around to the light and being outside, because we're entering summertime months, I mean, really, we're almost in June. So natural light just shows up everything. So if you are a new cookier and you want to have a good experience with the customer, you want to make sure that you stay away from extremely difficult cookies, because things that you would not normally notice on that cookie, you will notice if they put it outside in nice natural lighting, unbagged cookies under a glass dome or something. Every little thing will show up on that cookie. So try to take all of those things into consideration as you're taking your cookie orders and moving into summer, because here a lot of people are planning on getting together outdoors. They're going to have outdoor weddings, outdoor bridal showers. They're having outdoor baby showers, and they're going to probably do that all the way through the summer. So just try to make sure that they understand, yes, you can do that, but if you do that, the responsibility is on them for making the decision to have that. First off, if they really push you and you really want to take the order, then the responsibility is on them. But then also really try not to do that, because even if the responsibility is on them and you and they know that, their guests are not going to know that. And all they're going to see is your packaging with your business name and think that you don't know what you're doing, right? So you need to really, if something's making you very uncomfortable, then you need to take that into consideration as well as to how you handle it. Everything's been very different the last year with regard to where people can have parties, how many people can be there. It's affecting everybody's decision making. And right now where I live, the restrictions have been lifted. So we have this mass, we're getting married now in case we get shut down again, or in case the numbers come down again. Like, it's a big push. So just be careful to, in everybody's excited state of wanting to do all these things, that's great, but be very careful to still continue to guide them, because you're the professional. Okay, you're the person that's making the item. It's up to you to relay that information to them. It's also up to you to make sure that even if they say they want it, maybe you don't want to do it because it could fall back on your business, right? We're so heavily social media that you need to take that into consideration too. But tomorrow, after a little bit of sketching, this little guy will be done too. And I will make sure that I put pictures up of the cookies that we did tonight. And then if you'll join us next Tuesday, Mara and I will be doing cookie therapy at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be doing bee theme again. I think she's locked in on what she's doing, but I'm not sure. I don't want to say in case she changes it. Friday, if you want to jump on at 1 o'clock, I'll be sharing her stream over to my page. She'll be on with Han and Amber on Friday, so you can catch that there. If you want text alerts, let me pop that up really quick so that you have that number. If you would like to get some text alerts, you can sign up for this. This is the phone number. Just go to that 540 phone number and type sign me up. And this is a text only phone number. This is not a call phone number. It's a service that I'm using. And we're testing it out because we're finding a lot of people are not getting their Facebook notifications and they're not getting their event notifications. So today in my coffee shop, I've got these 3 royal icing transfer templates, as well as a full supply list for what we did earlier. That's there as well. You can join me every Tuesday with Marlon of Montreal Confections, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for two fun cookie tutorials. Sometimes we speed through them by using videos or pre-prepped stage cookies, because we try to keep it to right around an hour. But then I think what I'll be doing, you guys, is jumping on once or twice a week and doing some extended tutorials if you just want to go at a little bit slower pace. That was a request I had. So I feel like I'll jump on and maybe go through different cookies as I'm working on different projects. Also next week, if you are interested in learning about stamping on cookies, these are some of the bee stamps that I got in recently, and I will be using these in next week's project. Not all of them, but a couple of them I'll be using in the project next week. So we'll be going over that in case you're interested in doing stamping on cookies. I think that's about it. And I think I probably should log off. We're going to be right at 2 hours. How funny is that? So leave me some comments, share the post. Thank you. Thank you for your support in the coffee shop. It makes the live streams possible. It was so fun to spend tonight with you, and you guys have a great evening. Bye.